Hey, welcome. Today we are diving into one of the most fascinating prophecies in the book of Jeremiah. It's a really strange vision. We're talking two baskets of figs that end up representing two completely opposite fates. So let's get right into it.
Okay, so right out of the gate, this story throws a massive curveball at us. I mean, think about it. We usually see victory, safety, and prosperity as signs of blessing, right? Well, this prophecy just flips that whole idea completely on its head. It forces us to ask, what if the thing that looks like a total disaster is actually an act of mercy? So, to really get what's happening here, we need to jump back in time and see exactly what the prophet Jeremiah saw. And this wasn't just some clever metaphor he cooked up. No, this is presented as a direct vision from God, one that lays out a super stark choice between two possible futures.
Now, the historical setting is absolutely crucial. You have to picture this. We're in Jerusalem and it's 597 BC. The Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar has just rolled through and hauled off the best and brightest of the nation. We're talking about the king, the princes, the skilled workers, the blacksmiths. Basically, the entire leadership and skilled workforce is gone, dragged off to Babylon. The mood in the city? It is bleak.
And it's right at this moment, right in front of the temple, that Jeremiah has this vision of two baskets of figs. And look at the contrast here. It couldn't be more extreme. One basket is filled with perfect, beautiful, first-ripe figs. The other? It's full of figs so rotten you literally can't even eat them. There's no middle ground. It's either perfect or it's worthless. This powerful image is setting the stage for a pretty shocking judgment.
Okay, so you've got a basket of perfect figs and a basket of totally rotten ones. The obvious question is, who do they represent? And the answer, well, it's the first huge twist in this story. And believe me, nobody at the time would have seen this coming.
The good figs, the perfect ones. Who are they? They're the exiles, the very people who had just been defeated, captured, and dragged hundreds of miles away from home. The ones everyone back in Jerusalem was probably thinking were cursed and rejected by God. They're the ones being called very good. I mean, can you imagine how stunning that would have been to hear?
And this verse tells us why. God says their exile wasn't some random tragedy or even the punishment they thought it was. It was a deliberate act of preservation. I have sent them for their good. God was intentionally pulling them out of a bad situation to save them. So the exile wasn't rejection, it was actually protection.
And on top of that, a huge promise was attached to this painful mercy. God promises to watch over them, to protect them, and eventually to bring them back. And just listen to the language here. Build, plant. This is a complete 180 from Jeremiah's usual message of plucking up and pulling down. For these exiles, there was hope. There was a future.
All right, so if the captives, the exiles, are the good figs, that only leaves one other group, right? Let's turn to that second basket, because the fate of those rotten figs is every bit as shocking as the fate of the good one. Yep, the bad figs, the inedible ones, they represent the people who were left behind. This is the new puppet king, Zedekiah, all his officials, and everybody who was still living in Jerusalem, or who had run off to Egypt thinking they were safe. They thought they were the lucky ones. They thought they'd escaped the disaster. They were so wrong. For them, the prophecy is absolutely devastating. They're told they'll become a reproach and a proverb, basically a cautionary tale of what not to do. They'll be scattered and face that classic, terrifying judgment trio of sword, famine, and pestilence until they're wiped off the land. Their so-called safety was actually a death sentence.
Wow, so this is a really dramatic, high-stakes prophecy. But here's the big question. Did any of it actually happen? Well, the historical record gives us a pretty resounding yes.
Let's just walk through the timeline. The vision happens in 597 BC, right after that first exile. Then, just about a decade later, in 586 BC, Nebuchadnezzar comes back, and this time he completely flattens Jerusalem and the temple. The bad figs are killed or scattered, just like the prophecy said. Then you fast forward a few decades to 538 BC, and the Persian Empire takes over, and what do you know, they allow the Jewish exiles in Babylon, the good figs, to start going home.
I mean, just look at this chart. It lays it out perfectly. The prophecies for both groups were fulfilled, and with incredible precision. The exiles were promised a return, and it began in 538 BC. The remnant was promised destruction, and that came in 586 BC. The vision was like a perfect roadmap of what was about to happen.
But look, this isn't just about a cool old prophecy that came true. The real power of Jeremiah 24 is in the reason why all this happened.
And it goes way beyond just politics and armies. It gets to the very heart of what faith is all about. Here it is. This verse is the absolute core of the whole chapter. This is the promise that was made to the good figs, to the exiles. God says the ultimate point of their terrible journey wasn't just to bring them back to a piece of dirt, but to give them a heart to know me. The whole terrible ordeal was about changing them from the inside out.
And this idea of knowing God, it wasn't about knowing facts about Him. It was about having a real, restored relationship with Him. The suffering of exile was designed to strip away all their false confidence, their trust in the temple, and their politics, and their own strength, and force them to turn back to God with everything they had. It was an incredibly painful process, but it was also a refining one.
So here's the bottom line. The big takeaway from all this. Being physically located in the Holy Land, right next to the Holy Temple itself, meant absolutely nothing if your heart was far from God. He wasn't interested in just preserving a building or a piece of land. He was preserving a people whose hearts were being changed for the better.
And that leaves all of us with a really powerful question to think about. The story of the 2 baskets of figs forces us to look at our own lives and ask, what do we really put our trust in? Is our security based on our external circumstances, our job, our bank account, where we live? Or is it based on something much deeper, on an internal character and a relationship with God that can hold up even when everything else around us starts to fall apart? It's definitely something worth thinking about. Thanks for tuning in.